Well, students, I have the pleasure to dialogue with two colleagues from Galen College of Nursing that have had diverse experiences with natural disasters and the implementation of charting. And as you know, 2017 was a year of a lot of national disasters, and it really was a catalyst of the conversation that I had with Lanice that made me think we should do a quick little video for the students and share our experiences and lessons learned so that you, as future nurse leaders, have some resources and tools to think about and help you in your transitions when a disaster does impact your healthcare facility. So with that, I'm Dee Burlingame of our NWSN program, and I'd like to have my colleagues introduce themselves.
Hello students, my name is Lanice Smith and I am adjunct faculty with Galen College.
Hello students, I am Nancy Bellucci and I am a full-time instructor here at Galen College.
Well, so thank you guys for introducing yourselves. And what I wanted to just talk about was our different experiences. So students, we all live all over the United States. We are located in very different locations and have had very different experiences. For example, many years ago, when I was a nursing faculty, one of our communities nearby us, Grand Forks, North Dakota, and Grand Forks, Minnesota, had a flood. And the river rose to 57 feet and the water breached the levee. So they had been sandbagging and they'd been doing all these great community things. They thought they were going to be okay. And all of a sudden, when that water breached the levee, what happened was they had to do a rapid evacuation of several hospitals and nursing homes. I worked at a college that was actually 50 miles away, and we were the fourth person on the list. You know how you get a disaster plan of what's your backup, of where you're going to move your patients. We were the fourth down on the list, but because the breach was so significant and the water went about 3 miles out, it really took out a lot of their backup plans. And so we ended up having a whole nursing home get evacuated to our community college. It was an amazing experience. But when you think about what happened in my experience, the two hospitals that were there, they had to evacuate, each had about a bed capacity of about 450 to 500 patients. So they had to fly out all of those patients. That was 1,000 patients that they had to get out rapidly because their hospital was flooding. And also then the nursing home that evacuated to our community college ended up setting up in the middle of our basketball court in our gymnasium. And all of those employees, even though they lived in that Grand Forks region, they stayed with their patients. I was just so proud of nursing that day because even though their own families, when the breach happened, it happened so fast, they weren't sure about their own homes, about the location of their kids. They had to trust that the school district and that their spouses and significant others were going to take care of their own families, their own dogs, their own pets, all those kind of things. And they stayed with those residents and helped relocate them over to our community college. And because it happened so fast, they did not have the chance to grab all of the charts. What they were able to grab was the medical records of people's EMRs, how they give the medications. They decided that that was the primary thing that they could get out. And then also, this was before a lot of places had redundant backups in their charting. So they had a redundant backup, but they weren't backing it up for their charts every 24 hours. They were backing it up like once a week. And so they thought that that was going to be adequate. But that backup, the ability to get those patients' charts from the backup, unfortunately, the backup was in also the Grand Forks community, located a long ways away from the nursing home, but because of the impact of the flood, it really took them a while to get those charts. So it was really, really challenging, but it also was for the nursing students who were enrolled at our college at that time, it was an amazing experience. And those long-term care patients did not get transferred to another long-term care setting until 6 to 8 weeks later. So it took 6 to 8 weeks to get all those residents placed. And so we had wandering around in the nursing home, right smack dab in the middle of the college, with all of those employees trying to do safe patient care. It was an amazing experience where we really had to block off areas of the college and not have patients get confused, residents get confused. And again, you think about a long-term care setting, they had to traverse things like beds. The Red Cross flew in cots for them, but can you really put a resident in a cot? And is it stable enough for a resident to get up and down from a cot? And in the end, it sounds almost sacrilegious to a nurse, but in the end, all those residents, in the end, they decided it was safer to put them the mattresses on the floor rather than have the residents on the cot. And so then that whole piece of getting patients up off the floor was a real challenge, in cleanliness and all those kind of things. But the charting was a real challenge. And so literally what we ended up having to do for those residents is we gave everybody file folders, and we had to give them blank pieces of paper and put their name on top of it and put their EMR on top of that, so that they had their record. And all of those employees knew the residents. We didn't, even as nurses and nursing students, we didn't know any of those. So those employees had to hang with those residents for a long period of time. They just couldn't give them up. We had to get everybody's, ID bands, because again, in long-term care, not everybody wears an ID band, but now all of a sudden you've got a bunch of strangers providing care and augmenting the care. So there was a lot of forethought that had to happen once that event occurred. So that was one of my experiences that was pretty profound. But like I said, I was really proud of what our nursing was able to pull off. So I know that both Nancy and Lanice have had some experiences too. Theirs is a little more recent though.
Yes, yes, students, I would like to just share some information around our most recent experience with Hurricane Irma here in the state of Florida. But I'd like to just take a step back just about a year and a half ago in the implementation of the electronic health record in our current facility. And I led that implementation of the electronic health record. And one part of that part of that implementation, we had to begin to think about what we needed during the downtime. So as we went from paper-based charting to the electronic charting, we saved all forms that we felt were necessary for downtime charting. And those forms consisted of nursing notes, physician's orders, progress notes, the medication administration record, but also the treatment record, and admission database charting, discharge charting. So we saved the gamut of charting from our paper-based charting as we moved into our electronic medical record. And then we also had to train the nurses, the new nurses that came to our facility during the time of the electronic medical record. They had no idea of what our downtime charting looked like. So we had to make that a part of our orientation and onboarding process. So I'll fast forward to just a few weeks ago to Hurricane Irma, and the thought that we now have to put this downtime charting in place, this emergency preparedness for our residents, because workflow is disrupted during times of evacuation. And we moved our residents from our facility to another facility. Wasn't another long-term care facility, but it was a facility that was in our emergency preparedness program to care for them. And my thoughts went around, are our nurses prepared to do this charting? As it relates to specifically, mainly my main concern was the pharmacy, the medication administration record, because when you have electronic charting, you're integrated fully with your pharmacy, meaning you're communicating with them on a moment-by-moment basis if needed around medication needs and medication changes and orders of that nature. However, in the event of downtime, we print that for 7 days. We have to document the changes. And so I felt that our nurses did a great job, because the majority of them a year and a half ago understood our paper-based charting. However, my concern is in the future, after having had this incident, how do we continue to, when we talk about emergency preparedness and we do our drills We need to do drills on downtime charting. We think of fire safety and things of that nature, but I don't think we had in our drill process downtime documentation as a key that impacts patient workflows during emergency preparedness. So it was a huge eye-opener for us.
Well, and also, Lenise, if I recall correctly, you shared with me that you had that similar experience when you were working as an ICU nurse too.
Yes. Yes, as an ICU nurse many years ago, probably about 5, there was no hurricane or earthquake that caused the downtime issue during the day shift. Typically, we have our scheduled downtime nights and weekends, and we are prepared for those. However, on a midday, very busy day in the ICU, we had a computer issue, and the computers went down. Unfortunately, at that time, I received a very ill patient from a med-surg unit that required lots of medications, a bedside procedure, lab work, x-rays, and titration of medications and things of that nature that typically in the electronic medical record would sync with our technology to continue to download those vital signs real time, where we can make decisions, and that was not the case for about 8 hours. And so again, we had to pull our nursing notes and medication records and the telephone to speak with pharmacy on a regular basis and make sure that my narrative notes were in chronological order of what was occurring at the time, and it was occurring very quickly. And also my interventions and the outcomes of those interventions were documented in the paper-based charting. And that went on for a good 8 hours, which required many more hands at the time. So typically it's a nurse, physician, a patient care tech, and your workstation on wheels with everything at your fingertips. It became a nurse manager, an educator, anybody, any hands on deck that I could to walk to the pharmacy to get the medication, because I could no more communicate with the pharmacy via the computer. So I really was thankful for the fact that I was versed in narrative charting, being able to chart my assessments from head to toe, or systems focused assessments by hand, to make sure that I was able to clearly communicate what was going on with my patient at the time as we went through the emergency procedure and the bedside procedure. And so I would say that narrative charting is very important. Learning how to narratively chart what is going on with our patients, the interventions, the outcomes of those interventions in a chronological order to tell the story, to communicate that to other providers so that continuity of care is maintained following the downtime. And also, once the computers were working, now how do we get this information in the computer so that it will flow? And one of my main concerns that I'm noting is being able to chart vital signs on a graph to look at trends. That's something that we've done in the past. It's done in the computer for us. As we enter those vital signs in, they're trending on a graph. However, there were graphs that we used in nursing on paper charting, and it trended for us. So the purpose of that is profound when you're in the midst of downtime charting, so you can see where your vitals are going up, down. Are they maintaining as you're giving your medications? What are they doing? So that's important also. So thank you for reminding me of that, Kat.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Similar to you, I worked in ICU ER for a very long time, and we had an anhydrous spill, and we had to have downtime. And so those challenges are very relevant. And I remember that the challenges of getting the medications and the multiple interdisciplinary people trying to keep track of who's documenting what, because we had patients on ventilators, and RT would come in and do a nebulizer. And so normally that's all tied into the chart, but they also had to have their documentation in the other ancillary support systems, as well as the nursing documentation.